Trouble brewing at the NDP. The party was decimated in last month's election, reduced to just 7 members, losing official party status in the parliamentary resources that come with that designation. Then late last week, the Globe and Mail reported 3 out of 7 NDP MPs wrote a letter to the party's executive criticizing the appointment process for interim leader Don Davies. The MPs, Jenny Kwan, Laurie Idlout, and Leah Gazan. But they've since sought to clarify their letters with statements. Leah Gazan, for example, posting in part to social media, "We value and respect all our caucus colleagues, including Don Davies. In writing the letter, we were seeking to review and discuss our concerns with the process and come to an agreement on how we move forward together. We must return to our roots in ensuring an inclusive and democratic engagement." NDP National Director Lucy Watson also sent a statement to CTV News that reads in part, "Our Constitution gives the Federal Council, our party's governing body between conventions, the exclusive authority to appoint an interim leader, and the process was followed to the letter." Let's bring back the front bench to talk about that. Brian Gallant, Lisa Raitt, Tom Mulcair, and Rob Benzie are here. Tom, of course, I have to start with you. I'm just wondering, as you watch all of this unfold, as, for example, you read that piece in the Globe, you see the reaction to it, like, what is going through your mind about the future prospects for the NDP?
It's been one of those days where I've talked to a lot of people who worked so hard to get the NDP to, its utmost accomplishment, which was becoming official opposition. And people are just so depressed. I mean, one used a very funny joke. How many socialists does it take to have a schism? Apparently the number is 7 and they break 4-3. I mean, this is what's left of the NDP. Only a tiny fraction of the ridings across Canada saw the NDP hit the 10% mark, which is what you have to get to have your expenses reimbursed. The party is flat broke. Charlie Angus made an interesting, I think, largely valid criticism of the campaign that was run and was immediately slapped down by the person who had at one point been, Jagmeet Singh, chief of staff. He dared criticize the campaign. How dare he? Well, I think there was a lot to criticize about that campaign, frankly. And so it's just one of those situations where a party is on the ropes and nothing that they're going to do right now is going to make it any better. It would have been the easiest thing in the world for that federal council to say, hey, there are only 7 people. Let's have them into the room and let's talk. I remember, we went through this with the untimely passing of Jack Layton, and caucus was involved every step of the way. We weren't told that this person had been anointed. They were everybody in caucus, it was a big caucus, part and parcel of the process. So it's just a breakdown of a party that was once very, very strong. And that's not that long ago, 15 years ago, it was very strong. So there will be a time when the NDP will come back under new leadership and with new ideas, but right now it is a gong show, and it's unseemly, and it's very sad to see, frankly. I don't see any easy way out of it right now. I noticed that 3 strong women who signed that letter to the Federal Council. I think that's part of the message, and that you can't just push people aside and expect them not to react. So it's not going to be easy for Don, who, by the way, is a gentleman, and is going to do his very best in this tough situation. But it's the party as a whole that has to do some soul searching at this point.
Yeah, it's just very hard to see, like, Rob, when 7 MPs who don't have, yes, there's a leader, but there's now consternation about that. They don't have resources to pool behind a leader at this point, or they haven't made that decision to. Like, it's difficult to even find yourselves in the conversation. And also, I should note, when the Prime Minister has said, like, no to any kind of formal arrangement with the NDP.
Yeah, I mean, and we've seen a mirror of this here in Ontario, Vashi, where the Ontario Liberal Party, which had governed for 15 years, was reduced to not having party status after the 2018 election, and they only regained it this year. They were in the wilderness for 7 years without party status, which to outsiders, people don't realize what that means. It means you don't have standing in the chamber. So in the Commons, they are 7 independent members, so they won't get questions every single day. They don't have resources for research, for question period, or resources to do research. It's really, really. I mean, Tom's right. It's the wilderness. And this, when Ian Bailey broke that story in the Globe last week, I think you sent it to me, Vashi, or Laura Stone sent it to me. We were laughing, and we were just saying, what it is, as Tom says, a gong show. I mean, there's only 7 of them. You couldn't agree on even this? And poor Don Davies, he's emasculated before he's on the job, if there is a job to be on.
What do you think this means more largely for like two-party versus 3 or 4 or 5-party systems, Lisa? I think a lot of people in the Liberals and the Conservatives, Canadians writ large are, I think, at least as they convey to me, asking themselves, like, is this the future now, a two-party system? And if so, for how long? What does your gut tell you about that?
It's not. It's not. First of all, my gut is saying, thank God it's another party having these internal struggles other than my party, because I get a little sick of it always being about us. So that's my first point. My second point, though, is the NDP are in government in 2 provinces, and they're in opposition in 4 provinces. This is not a dead brand. This is a very real brand, and provincial votes have gone their way significantly in the past number of years. So there's lots of hope. They have to get their federal house in order. But I also think Canadians have been very clear in recent polling. They are not interested in a 2-party system whatsoever. And maybe it's because we look to the south and we can see the polarization is even worse. Canadians want to hedge their bets. If they want to vote NDP, Conservative, or Liberal, they actually can dabble in all 3 if they want to at any given time. And I'm sure a lot of people have voted. Tom, you probably voted for all 3 of them. Well, maybe not the Conservatives. I exaggerate. But I know. But the reality is that is the prerogative of Canadians. And that is, they're going to be okay. They just got a little bit of pain to get through. And trust me, we've gone through that pain in the last 15 years. There's a light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not necessarily a train. It's going to be okay.
Brian, what do you think about that?
Well, I guess let me start off by saying the obvious. The fact that they don't have status in Parliament will make it hard for them to get attention. But if they fight like this, they can get attention. So I don't know if it's what they really would want. Right. It is, I think, also a mistake to have put that in writing, in the sense that if they didn't like the process, but ultimately it was followed on paper, the rules were followed, putting it on paper and writing that letter, really you were asking for this sort of public debate about this, which is not positive for the party. Had they had a problem, I think it would have been easy to pick up the phone and talk to the now interim leader, or the leader, talk to the council, talk to sort of organizers, and maybe they did that, but I would have left it to that. And I think putting it in writing and basically saying, like, this is all botched and this isn't a good process, I mean, it's already going to be tough enough when you're trying to represent and trying to get your word out while you represent 7 caucus members. It's going to be all that much harder when your leadership is already undermined. So I think they've done themselves a real disservice. I can maybe see that maybe if they weren't consulted for the leadership, I can see that frustration, and I think that's warranted, and I think that's valid. But sending in an official letter, I think they were asking for what we're doing right now, talking about the NDP in a very negative light, in a way that they're not organized, in a way that they're not doing what they should be doing, as Tom mentioned, thinking about the election results and how to move forward. But I do agree with Lisa. Parties have been called dead and done before. The Liberals were called dead and done 6 months ago. so politics certainly has a way. Politics certainly has a way of reviving people. So the party could certainly have a future, but not if they act like this.
Okay, I'm going to leave it on that note. Thanks, everyone.